This episode right here had me like classic Loki at the end of last week's episode where I was just like, glorious purpose! And welcome to my safe Gaben. Guys, we are finally here. The moment we have been waiting for. I think about Hamilton when I say that. Ladies and gentlemen, the moment you have waited for, George Washington. That's basically how I feel for this episode. The moment you've been waiting for, the season finale of Loki. What did you guys think about this episode? The guys, we will be talking full on spoilers. So if you have not seen episode 6 for all time, always of Loki, now's your time to dip. For those of you that are still here, please do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button. It'll really help with the YouTube algorithm. And I need you down in the comments and some engagement for the algorithm. Let me know what you thought about this episode. Did this episode live up to your expectations? Was this one of your favorite episodes of the season? Does this series live up to your expectations? Is this your favorite series of the between Falcon and WandaVision? Falcon and Winter Soldier, WandaVision, and now Loki. Where does this rank? Let's get the conversation going. Guys, like, this episode was crazy. And it's right now, it's 3:54, so I gotta record this and edit this. You know, like that girl, if you guys follow TikTok, where she's like, it's Friday, I'm gonna keep it black, but I'm gonna keep it brief. That's kind of how I feel right now. I'm gonna keep it black and queer, and I'm gonna try to keep it brief because I work tonight, and so I still need to get some sleep for my shift. Otherwise, I'm gonna be like, there's been a couple times where I've almost fallen asleep while driving. We don't want that to happen tonight. So I'm gonna try to get through this really quick. But also with that, guys, tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to be doing double duty tomorrow, but at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be going live with Ron, and I'm trying to get James. If you guys caught my Black Widow live stream, you know who James is. I'm going to try to get him on the live with me tomorrow. Frankie, you know Frank, she's traveling the multiverse, so she's not available, but I'm going to try to get James tomorrow. And then also at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow, I will be on Movie Files channel, and we will also be discussing the season finale of Loki. So if you're available at 5 p.m., join me live, and then also if you're available at 8 p.m., join me live on Movie Files' channel. So yeah, it's going to be a jam-packed day tomorrow evening. But yeah, like overall, I freaking loved this episode. Now, obviously, I had some problems, and we'll get into that later on. But like, my whole apprehension and concern about this episode going into after the lackluster episode 5, I was concerned about this episode. And while there's still a lot of things that this episode did not answer, on the strength of Jonathan Majors and what this episode foretells for the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, this episode had me hyped. And you could tell this episode was going to be different, just even in the way that it opened. And guys, like I said, if you haven't caught from the title of this episode or anything like that, spoilers. I'm going to be talking full spoilers for this episode. But yeah, even in the way this episode opened, where you got to hear previous Avengers from other movies, you got to hear T'Challa, Natasha, Thor, Loki, Odin, etc. And Maya Angelou and Nelson Mandela made their Marvel Cinematic Universe debut. Like, you got to hear them in the background as you got to see the planets and the stars and the galaxies and everything like that expanding. And then also with that, surprise of all surprises, Jonathan Majors actually appeared in this episode as Kang the freaking Conqueror. Actually, hold up. I had to grab my Kang the Conqueror action figure. I'm going to put him in the background. And then my Loki, you know, we see that we match a little bit. His horn's a little bit bigger than mine. That's what he said. But, yeah, whatever. So I'm going to have the two of them in the background. I don't have a Sylvie toy. But yeah, you see them in the background. But surprise, because I honestly, I didn't think, and granted, I said if Kang the Conqueror, if there's no tease to Kang or anything like that, I would be supremely disappointed. There was more than just a tease. He was this episode, and my God. And I feel like this version of Kang that Jonathan Majors was playing was what we know as Immortus from the comics. And basically, Kang the Conqueror he's basically like time traveling Doctor Doom. He travels throughout the timeline the future, the present, the past, and there's multiple versions of Kang. And just like in this episode, some of them are more evil than the others, some of them are a little bit more benevolent, and yet there's a version of Kang called Immortus, and he wants to be the final version of Kang, and so he's overseeing the entire timeline to try to make sure there's no other version of Kang to overthrow him, because his biggest fear is that there will be a Kang, or all the Kangs will get together to take him out. And so because of that, I think that's what this version of Jonathan Majors is playing, the Immortus version of Kang the Conqueror. And then talking about tie-ins and things like that, Kang the Conqueror, or rather the Immortus version of Kang the Conqueror, was obsessed with getting his hands in marriage with Scarlet Witch, because Scarlet Witch, being a Nexus being, was the one being that the Timekeepers were afraid of, because she can easily manipulate the timeline and things like that, and she was so powerful, the Timekeepers feared her, the Timekeepers wanted to keep their eye on her, the Timekeepers never wanted her to have children. That's kind of why they manipulated her and Vision to get together, because they knew that Vision couldn't have kids. Little did they know that Wanda was just going to use her magic to create kids, but that could be a whole nother thing as well, where you got Kang the Conqueror trying to get with Scar, even though I don't know how I would feel about that, considering now that they cast Kang as black and Wanda's whatever, we're not going to talk about that, but yeah, tie-ins galore, and I have no doubt in my mind that now that this episode has come out, the Spider-Man Far From Home trailer is going to drop within the next month. They had to have this episode come out, and now the multiverse is confirmed. The multiverse is now here. So now with Spider-Man No Way Home, you're going to see Tom Holland version of Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield's version of Spider-Man, and Tobey Maguire's version of Spider-Man in this trailer. But yeah, when Jonathan Majors was explaining the origins of the TVA and how there's so many different versions of him, and some of them are not as benevolent as others, and I just was like, oh my God, this is I want all of this. And it's also a very comic book thing where there is a council of Kangs, just like there's a council of Reed Richardses in the comics, just like in Rick and Morty, there's a council of Ricks. But with all this explanation and setup, that's basically what this episode was. It was set up for what's coming next, but I was super excited. And at first, honestly, to be blunt, Jonathan Majors' performance in this episode kind of threw me off a little bit, because he seemed a little quirky. He didn't really seem like a conniving villain. But the more I watched, because you could see moments where, when he talked about his evil selves and what they would accomplish, and he was like, yeah, some of them are very deadly. You could see the menace in his face. And so I was like, oh, he's gonna be a freaking fantastic villain going forward once we actually get to see the more evil versions of his variants. And plus, this version of Kang is he mentions it, he's way older, he's been around for a while, and he's tired. So his quirkiness, even though it threw me off a little bit because I was expecting something different, it makes sense for this version of Kang or Immortus. And come on now, it's Jonathan Majors. Jonathan Majors is fine. And then not only just that, but I didn't know how much it would hit me seeing this black man being the one behind the curtain, the ruler kind of everything, and manipulating all of the things, and the one that people are fearing at the time. Because I always mentioned before, when it comes to black villains, there needs to be more black villains in media, and in the sense that, not that we're the stereotypical drug dealer or thug or those type of villains, but how often do you get to see us as a Lex Luthor type, as a Darth Vader, or as the mad scientist, the smart, conniving, one behind it all type of villain, not the stereotypical villain. And plus, just coming from an acting standpoint, because I got my degree in theater performance, just as an act, playing villains, being able to play a villain is fun. And a lot of times, black people aren't really allowed those opportunities, again, outside of a stereotype. Now, with that said, because I did say I'm gonna keep it brief, with that said, I do feel in terms of my problems for this episode, I do feel for this to be a Loki show, it didn't really end on a satisfying note for Loki. This episode, like I mentioned, this episode basically was exposition for the next thing. But outside of that, and which I was super excited for, what was this show ultimately about? Why did this show have to be called Loki? Why did this show have to be about Loki? Because ultimately, when you get to the first couple episodes, the show was always about Loki and the different variants, and Loki learning to be a better person and everything like that. But then when you get to the end of this season and ultimately was never about Loki. It's just about Kang, and Kang trying to manipulate the timeline to keep other versions of himself from taking over, from starting another multiversal war. But that had nothing to do with Loki. Like, this show could have just been called TVA, which is part of the reason why a lot of us speculated that it wasn't going to be Kang at the end of this episode. It was going to be like an evil ultimate version of Loki, but no, which I'm glad it wasn't, because I would have thought that would have been very disappointing. I'm glad it's Kang. I love the fact that we got to see Kang, and the fact that they introduced such a major player in a Disney Plus show. It shows you that times are definitely changing, and you need to watch these shows to get further informed with everything that's going on in the movies, even though Kevin Feige said before, oh, you don't need to watch the Disney Plus shows. Well, this episode showed that yes, you absolutely do. And even with Black Widow, like, if you didn't watch Falcon and Winter Soldier, that post-credit scene at the end of Black Widow means nothing to you. But with that, like, how much did we really learn about Loki that we didn't already actually know? And then on top of that, the whole thing was about Sylvie and her Nexus event and fighting the TVA. We still didn't even learn what caused Sylvie to become a variant. We still don't know what her Nexus event is. And yes, I get there will be people probably in the comments saying that, oh, well, because yes, they did announce that this show is coming for a season 2, so there's still more story to tell. However, when it comes to completing this story, the season 1 story, I feel like it wasn't a finale. It doesn't feel like it was a complete story. So take, for example, if you guys watch Once Upon a Time, the first season was about Emma, the chosen one, the daughter of Snow White and Prince Charming. It was about her not believing magic. It was about her coming to Storybrooke and bringing magic back to the town. She didn't believe magic existed. She didn't believe that she was a fairy tale creature. And season 1 ended with her bringing magic back to Storybrooke. And season 2 was about now the evil queen has her magic back. And yes, the story was continuing, but the story from season 1 was done. She now believes that she is a fairy tale creature. Same thing with Buffy. Buffy season 1. Season 1 was about her taking out the master vampire. And season 1 ended, the master vampire was done. Buffy's story is still continuing, but now it's going to be another big bad. I feel like the story of season 1 didn't even finish in Loki season 1. So that's my big criticism regarding this episode. It was just setting up Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, Spider-Man No Way Home, Kang the Conqueror's next story when we see him in Ant-Man. But in terms of like Loki's story in season 1, it felt very incomplete and hollow. And ultimately, like, it makes me wonder, like, what is this show ultimately about? It's called Loki, but is it really? Because it ended on, like, it's really just about Kang. Like, the show should have just been called Kang, or call it Stopping Kang, because that's ultimately what it boiled down to. And like, why did we need Loki for that? We don't need Loki to stop Kang, because apparently Sylvie, who's another Loki, and I love how he kept calling her Loki, she made it worse. She's the one that released all the, released the Kraken. She released all the different, now all the variants of Kang are free to destroy the multiverse pretty much. But ultimately, I love this episode. I had so much fun. Like, I'm gonna give this episode a Blockbuster. And yeah, join me tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're gonna talk more. We're gonna break it down more. We're gonna talk more about the Easter eggs and everything like that for episode 6 of Loki. Like I said, I need to hurry up and edit this so I can go to sleep and have at least 3 hours of sleep before I go to work. So with that said, if you could do me a favor and again hit that thumbs up button and like this video to really help out with the channel. And this is one of your first time checking out one of my videos, please check out the other videos on my channel. And if you like what you see, please subscribe for more and hit that bell notification button so you're alerted every single time I post a new video. And tell your friends, families, and neighbors about my channel to help me continue to grow. And as always, I will catch you guys next time.